Pardon?
Going live.
Thank you.
Kind of feels like we're in the library.
I know. It's long.
It is.
This is usually when Vince would start talking.
Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Village of Tequesta and to a regular meeting of the Village Council. It is Thursday, December the 10th, 2020, and it is 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Brennan.
Here.
Vice Mayor Stone.
Here.
Councilmember Brandon.
Here.
Councilmember Diabra.
Here.
Councilmember Prince.
Here.
Thank you. Would you please bow your heads for the invocation? Lord, we ask for your wisdom and guidance this evening as we work on behalf of our beloved Village of Tequesta is carrying forward. Help us remember that our loyalty is to all of our residents and businesses as we make decisions and take actions that best serve our community at large. Please also help us remember to honor and thank our staff because they serve the public and maintain the safety, health, and well-being of our community. They are inspirational in their dedication to our residents and deserving of our ongoing support and respect. At this time of year, when the holiday season is meant to bring love, peace, and joy, let us not forget those serving overseas in the military and those battling COVID-19, be it as victims, healthcare workers, or first responders. May we also humbly ask that the blessings of Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa are all bestowed upon us. Amen. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before I ask for approval of the agenda, we are adding an item which will be number 15, having to do with extended FMLA and emergency sick leave, and that has been forwarded to all council a few hours ago. So may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We have postponed the one presentation because Dorothy Jacks has a medical issue, so we will have her back, I'm sure. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the end of consent. We have communications from citizens. Mary Ann, do we have anyone wishing to speak to us?
We have two people. First one is Pastor Paul.
All right. Before Pastor starts, I just want to make sure the second one has nothing to do with an agenda item.
The second one is for number 8 on the agenda.
Okay, then
Pastor Paul does not have an agenda.
Okay, we'll just call that at that time.
Okay.
Thank you. Pastor.
Good evening, Council. On November the 1st, my name is Paul Beresford. I live at 312 River Drive, Tequesta, Florida. On November the 1st, my wife Carol fell off of her bicycle in our driveway and suffered 2 severe injuries. She tore her femur bone away from her knee and had to have a rod inserted from her hip to her knee. She also broke her wrist and had to have rods and screws put in her wrist to support 2 bones here. And so she's home now under 4 days a week of rehabilitation and cannot put any weight on it whatsoever. She'll be in a wheelchair probably 4 to 6 months, according to the therapist, and that can change. She's making good progress, is healing well. But I share all that to share a couple of things with you. When we called 911 on that Sunday afternoon, Captain Bill Newberg and our A-team were to respond to our home. They were there in a matter of minutes. Carol was in an incredible amount of pain, and they were able to take care of her and to nurture her and to prepare her to get into the ambulance. You know, I've been chaplain for our police and fire rescue for almost 18 years. And I've received many calls to go with them, to see them, what they do in action, and how they handle themselves with such professionalism. But to watch them working on my dear Carol with the love of my life was just an amazing thing. It makes me appreciative again of the incredible fire rescue team that we have in this village. Never take them for granted. Chief, to you and to your team. It's amazing. And then Officer Tim Baldwin and some of the other police officers asked what they could do. I said, well, I need some ramps made for Carol to get out of our house now because she has to be in a wheelchair constantly. So they came over and built us ramps for all around our house so she can get in and out of our home. Did that just out of the goodness of their hearts. And then Amber Krause, who is our executive assistant of our police department, put together a video. And when Carol came home from rehab up in Stewart after 2 weeks, Amber had put together a video of all of our police and fire. Many of you were involved in that video, wishing Carol a speedy recovery. It was such a beautiful thing. It brought tears to our eyes to watch the love that was shared from all of our village for her. And then she came home on the 20th of November. And when she came home, Captain Dan Tillis called and said, Pastor Paul, can we come over and see Carol? I said, sure. So they came over, all their masks on, social distancing. The whole team came over, Chief Troop, Tessa, all with flowers and cookies. They all came into our house. I'll never, ever, Chief, forget that. That meant more than you'll ever know. And watching that video that Amber made for us just blessed us beyond words. And then Lori McWilliams and Marianne Greaser and Counselor Lori Brandon put together a group of neighbors and friends to provide meals for us for the entire time we've been home. I mean, these are gourmet dinners that they have made for us. Gave us an opportunity to meet some of our new neighbors, or their family, and to thank them personally, to pray with them, and it was just the most amazing showing of love of our community to Carol and I we've ever witnessed. Lori even brought over Thanksgiving dinner to us that night. So all that to say this, I've had the honor of serving our village for many, many years, even now as an employee, as a critical incident stress manager and life coach and other things. And it is such an honor and privilege to serve here in this community, to know all of you for so many years, but to experience this time in our life now where it's going to change things for a long time. To see the love and the kindness it just poured out upon us has been overwhelming. So I just thought you as a council, as our leaders, need to know that. Never take one another for granted. We are very, very thankful for all of you and thankful to be a part of this incredible town. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Continue to pray for my dear Carol, please. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. All right, let's move on to communications from council, and let's start from my left with Councilmember D'Ambra.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. I just want to wish everybody happy holidays. I also want to thank Greg and his staff for the wonderful job they did with Winter Wonderland. It was so much in demand, they actually added an extra evening at the last moment, which was fantastic. And I want to thank Doug, you and your crew, once again for doing such a fabulous job of decorating the village properties. I mean, everything looks just absolutely fantastic this year. So other than that, that's it for me tonight.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
I'll second what Councilmember Drammer just said about the events and the way the village looks. Doug, great job. I also want to, recognize the efforts that we're doing for our businesses, the small businesses, and the different events that we've got going on. The sidewalk event that you came up with this weekend, and then also the event to collect your receipts and turn them in. Really getting some good responses on that, and hopefully we'll have some winners to go back out. So, just really proud of what the village is doing and the hard work that staff's putting forth. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brandon?
I'm good.
All right. Councilmember
As
Prince?
well. I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. With respect to businesses, this is the week that I will be going out to everyone in the village with our little greeting cards from me and the council members, I call it my walkabout. So hopefully we've got 220 cards printed because that's what I gave out the last time. And we will continue that tradition going forward, thanking our businesses for being here, for being the amenity that our residents appreciate. All right, let's move on to our standing reports. Let's see. Keith, please.
Nothing substantial to report. I'll wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season. In January, I'm hoping to have a new attorney who's going to be working with my firm of counsel. Some of you may know his name's Trey Nazaro. He's one of the attorneys for the town of Gulfstream. He was very involved in all that public records litigation, but he's going to be joining my firm on an as-needed basis, so I'm really excited about that. I'm going to be bringing him around to introduce him, so I'm looking forward to that. And I'll leave my report at that tonight.
Wonderful, thank you. Our village manager, Jeremy Allen, do you have a report for us this evening?
Well, you guys have the standing reports that we turned in. I was going to just talk a little bit about those events, and credit staff, Greg and, his team, and Lori. Amy, Angelo from Oceana Coffee has been, great volunteer to help spearhead those events. But, all the events that we do is a tribute to council and initiatives that you guys put forward of making those events, kind of a priority for our citizens. So just want to touch on that. And I would be remiss if I didn't let everybody know that we now have an Instagram that we're up and going, and we're promoting those the sidewalk sale and the sales that, or the specials that those vendors are putting on this weekend. So follow us on Instagram as well. So that's
All right.
my report. Thank you.
Thank you. We have received reports from Chief Medina, Chief Trube, and Matt Hammond. Are there any questions for them at this time?
I do have a question for Chief Trube in regards to the current response of COVID-19 and how your crew is doing. I know that you've sent out a report, and we've had close to 500 cases here in Tequesta, and unfortunately around 15 deaths. It's been a long haul for your guys, and just curious on how everyone's doing.
That's a loaded question. We did hit 500 today in our area. Honestly, it's a grind. It's something we look at every single day. The numbers are going up. I think you guys know that from the report. I expect the numbers to get a lot worse December, January, February, probably into March, when you factor in just the overall increase, along with holiday travel, holiday gatherings. I don't see anything that's going to slow it down. The vaccines are coming. We're involved in that on a local level, of course. To get them to the general public, you're probably not going to see that much before April, maybe the end of March with a little luck. And I think that's the next thing that actually puts a dent in this, actually slows it down. How's our staff doing? I think we're doing pretty good, but it's been 9 months. And really, especially when you talk about key contributors, it's a grind because we're really doing double duty. So when you talk about, running a fire department, I can tell you, just me to you, I've spent a lot of time over the last 3 weeks primarily doing COVID because of vaccines, pop-up testing, community outreach, and so forth. I think we're doing well, but there's no end in sight, and we don't really know for sure how this will end. We hope the vaccines stop it. That's what we're hoping for. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
I hope it wasn't too negative. Myself, I'm positive that we're on the right track and the vaccines are coming, and that's going to be the thing that helps us here. But just strictly looking at we're under a lot of pressure, quite frankly, to be able to do all these things.
Appreciate it.
You got it?
Thank you.
Chief, I want to thank you for the pop-up testing again.
You're welcome.
I think we had a nice showing, once more, and it's a wonderful amenity again for the people, the residents of the village that don't want to drive down to Southern Boulevard or run to some of the other sites that the county has.
I will likely try to bring that back,
Okay,
probably beginning of the year, pending vaccines and other things we got going on, making sure we're able to support. So probably beginning of the year. Maybe
Thank you.
different site, but beginning of the year.
are there any other questions from
I have a question
our
for Mr.
staff
Hammond.
members? Okay.
If you could just give the public an update on how the utility portal is going so far.
Sure, happy to. Excited to be able to say that it's up. There is a separate web page that Lori's helped create on the village website that has information on it, with step-by-step instructions on how to access it, as well as there's actually a video up there now of to be able to watch on how to log in and set it up. So we've got, I checked at lunchtime, we've got 30 to 40 that have signed up so far, and hopefully with some of the more of the outreach, more of the advertising of it, we get those numbers a lot higher.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anything else? All right, let's move on to new business. We don't have old business, it appears, so that is item number 8, SPR 1-19. It's a request for a time extension from Royal Tequesta LLC. Ms.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. The request that is in front of you is for the reserve. As you recall, last year on January 9, 2020, the council, approved a site plan. So that development order is good for 1 year if they don't pull a building permit. And as you all know, they didn't. So it's gonna expire January 9, 2021. So they apply per our code, per the village code, the applicant can apply for a time extension, for 1 year time extension. So that's what they are doing. They are applying for 1 year time extension. As you all know, the Planning and Zoning Board will review next week, as part of the Planning and Zoning Board agenda, the site plan modification that you already saw as an special exception use. So if everything goes well, we are expecting to bring that site plan modification in front of council in January, but the expiration is January 9, and the council meeting is January 14, I believe. So there is a little bit of, some days there that the applicant wants to be sure that they have this time extension. Please, Mr. Gentile is here if you have any questions for him.
If it pleases council, I'd like to have the citizen who has put in a card talk to us first.
Actually, that's going to be for number 9. She thought it
Oh,
was number
I
8.
thought you said 8.
She did.
Yes.
Oh, okay, but it's actually number 9. That's fine. All right, thank you. My question would be, Mr. Gentile, when are they planning on starting this? Is there a date, or are we just extending?
With Mayor and council members, George Gentile representing Royal Tequesta LLC. And the answer to your question is, it's been a pretty tough go for them at this point with getting started because of the pandemic, but they are anticipating starting right after they get the revised site plan done and getting in with building permits and getting all their engineering permits in. So that is their intent. And I think with the housing market as it is right now, I think it's now the time to get going. We're seeing a lot of activity, people moving into Florida, quite a bit more than we anticipated. So.
Neil, so if they don't get the extension, what's the process? How long is the process going to put them back?
If the extension is not granted, I'll let Nilsa, but I'm going to just tell you, we have a 5-day lag between the site plan that's approved and the one that's coming through for the modifications, and I anticipate that once that's approved, that will have its own time frame as well. So we're just trying to make sure that all the owner and the investors that are putting this project together don't have a lag time, because that makes it tough, and there's 5 days in there that we're not going to be in front of you. Okay, so.
And what's the cost if you were to not get?
Well, we would hope that you all would approve the modification, and then we would be right on track with the extension. We would have a year.
Well, she's asking if tonight is not approved, the time extension, that's what she's asking.
Then we'll have a null and void site plan for that project for 5 days, and then if you do not approve the amendment that we brought in,
And there's nothing there.
then there would be nothing approved there.
Nothing approved. That's the risk.
Yes.
If the timing, can I?
Yeah, sure, I'm sorry.
Yes. So basically, if the council grants the time extension, because they already have an approval, they do have an approval from the council, the January 2020. So if the council now grants the extension, they will have that development order good for 1 year. So they can still pull a building permit under that development order. But as you all know, the applicant have requested a modification. Now they want to do fee simple. They don't want to do any more condominiums. And that's the application that is in process, and the Planning and Zoning Board will hear that next week, So.
I think where I'm getting at is the developer changed their plans. I don't know if it was fully the pandemic, but they decided to change their plans and come back for approval. So it's
Yes.
not like they were delayed because council wasn't having meetings because of the pandemic.
No.
It was on them to change their entire plan.
Counselor, the plan is really just being changed in regards to how it's going to be marketed.
Well, I know that.
Because more
still is a
individuals, more people are interested in buying individual townhouse units as a fee simple than to be in a condominium situation, particularly up here in this area. So they're not changing anything on the plan other than the methodology that they will be selling those units. So the plan will stay intact as you approved it, as council approved it before. And they're just asking for a change in how they will, the ownership of each one of the units. And that's.
I understand that part. That part we already went
Yes.
through. Is there not a way we could just, instead of a full year extension? Keith, maybe,
Well, the
or Nielsen?
code, the attorney will need to say that. No, but that is section 78-334H.
Lori, why,
I don't have a
what's
problem
your
with the 5 days.
what's your hesitation to?
There's some pushback because they technically changed, it's not the building themselves of the plan, it's, like he said, it's the
I know,
wording.
but the council's approved this project, and if we
It's
want to see
not the
this.
project itself, it's
Okay.
just, why did they not get it done? They're the ones going and making changes and having to come back. So why should they not have to follow basically the procedures that are in place?
They are.
I think they made an
One of the
improvement.
procedures is to request an extension, and that's what they're asking us for.
Yeah, they're asking, doesn't mean it's just part of the procedure.
I know, but I'm trying to understand.
I'm not trying to argue about it, I'm just,
What your objection would be.
I'm not even objecting, I'm just asking for clarification why it is that they couldn't get in sooner.
Can I
Because
make,
they're the ones that changed.
if I could just make one other comment? If you give us a year extension, it goes till January 14th, 2022. If you approve the fee simple request, the plan is going to go from the date of that approval for 1 year, and the extension that you do tonight will no longer be valid because we've come in with an amendment to the site plan. So we're just trying to ensure that they have the ability to get the project. If you don't approve the extension and you don't approve the special exception, they don't have the right to build anything on that property at that point. They would have to come through the entire process again. And, we have a lot of projects that have taken advantage, a lot of advantage of the development order extensions that the state of Florida has given. This project did not ask for that. They've been trying to get it done, And they just ran into a time frame because of the way that everybody wants to buy these units. It's fee simple, and that's it in a nutshell. Most projects are getting an extension for 6 months plus 246 days, 200 and so many days, if they just came in and asked for the development order extensions from the state of Florida. We're just asking, we're trying to fill a gap here and make sure that they're able to build the development. They've put a lot of money into it. They bought the property. They spent a lot of money with consultants. And it has been, it has been a rough go for everybody. I'm sorry. I mean, I know that right now, if you got something that's ready, shovel, and going in the ground, you could sell it. But I just want to make sure you understand.
I do, and I'm not going against it, I'm just looking for clarification, but if they get approval, they will be planning to start this following year in 2021, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And
That's
they
it.
would, and then their extension would be no longer, it'd be only the 1 year that they have for that revised site plan.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
yes.
Is there any other comments from council? May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Opposed? Opposed? We have one opposed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much, and please, everybody have a safe and happy holiday season, and we look forward to seeing you over the next year.
Thank you, Mr. Gentile. Appreciate it. Item 9, which is ordinance number 09-20, first reading.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 0920, an ordinance of the Village Council, Village of Tequesta, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances in Chapter 54, Offenses, Article 1 in general, creating an entirely new section 54-7 entitled Balloons and Sky Lanterns, provides definitions, prohibitions, exceptions, enforcement, and penalties for the release of balloons and sky lanterns within the village, provided each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 54 shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing a conflicts clause, severability clause, authority to codify effective date for other purposes.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, normally open to council at this time, but if council agrees, we could hear from the one member of the public that would like to speak to this.
I agree.
All right. Thank you.
This is Katie O'Hara.
She'll identify herself for the record and your address, please.
Hello, everyone. I was so eager to talk trash with you. I tried to get up here early, so sorry about that. My name is Katie O'Hara, and I'm the Conservation Manager at Loggerhead Marine Life Center. And I'm here to speak in support of this ordinance. So as you all can guess, man-made debris in the marine environment pose a very significant threat to sea turtles and other marine life. And balloons are one of the most dangerous debris items we find during marine debris removal activities. In the Conservation Department at Loggerhead Marine Life Center, we actually sort through every single piece of trash that is removed from our marine environment during our activities, and we keep a running database of that debris. That helps us to focus our pollution prevention initiatives and really find what solutions need to be created in order to keep our marine life safe and to keep our oceans clean. So as you all, I'm sure know, Palm Beach County is actually home to one of the most densely nested sea turtle beaches in the entire U.S. It's actually Coral Cove, so it's right in our backyards. But also, through our marine debris removal activities, we've actually removed over 4,183 balloons from Palm Beach County beaches alone since 2017. So that's kind of crazy, and over 787 of those balloons have been removed in 2020 alone. So this was such a big problem that our research department was noticing that actually while they were out on their patrols during nesting season to take all their data of these sea turtle nests, they were actually started removing balloons as well because they were such a common item that they were finding. So about 71% of our blue planet is actually made of the ocean, is made of water. So when those balloons are released, either accidentally or on purpose, there's a really, really high chance that they're going to make it into the oceans, and then they pose a really big threat to marine life. Sea turtles mistake balloons for jellyfish, which is a really common prey item for sea turtles. So when they're deflated in the ocean floating around, they actually really resemble jellyfish. And at Loggerhead Marine Life Center, we've had patients that have come into our hospital with balloons in their stomachs, and over 100% of our post-hatchling sea turtles, or 100% of our post-hatchling sea turtles, have plastics in their stomach and have ingested debris, and we've found pieces of balloons in these post-hatchlings as well. So if a sea turtle ingests this balloon or ingests marine debris, it impacts in their stomachs or intestines, and they can actually end up starving to death because they think that they're full of this non-natural item, and they'll stop eating. So it's a really big issue, and also those balloon ribbons can entangle marine life, not only sea turtles, but seabirds as well, and cause really big issues for them like strangulation and drowning or death. So this is a large issue that we see on a very regular basis. We actually have worked with many municipalities to have balloon ordinances in their areas, and we have one right in our backyard in Loggerhead Park currently. And I can tell you, I've personally gone out there when people have parties and they have their balloons, and I'm like, hi, they're not allowed in this park, and I just talked to them really quickly about some of the information I just told you. And I can tell you more often than not, people actually end up kind of thanking us for the information because it's not something that they considered as a huge issue for our marine life and even as litter itself. Because when people let balloons go, I don't know where they think they go, but they don't consider it as litter. So we've had really positive responses for these educational signage in our parks, and people are really receptive to it. So I just highly encourage us to take the stand on that, and I really appreciate you all listening to me today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about balloons as a marine debris item or as sea turtles, or about sea turtles in general.
Thank you. Unless there is anyone else in the audience, I will close this now to citizen comment and open it for council comment.
But to quote Jerry
Do we have any-
Maguire, I think you had us at hello.
Sorry?
To quote Jerry Maguire, I think you had us at hello. The council, this is on this agenda because we're all very supportive of it. So.
Awesome. That's really great to hear. Our sea turtles, thank you. And it'll have less for me to pick up off the beach, so I appreciate that too.
Thank you. And I also want to thank the Environmental Advisory Committee, Jessica Namath in particular on this one. I know we have a great group of people in there, but thank you for bringing this to our attention, and we thank you for being here
Yeah, it's
today.
awesome. And yeah, thank you,
Absolutely.
Jessica.
I got one question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Councilmember Prince, last time we were talking about this, mentioned having a point-of-sale campaign on balloons.
Yes.
And just curious if there's any updates on that, or if there's any movement in that area.
So Jessica actually mentioned that to me on the phone, and I thought that was a great question. It's something we are actively looking into further. So we know more about these balloons than anyone would ever want to know about the specific balloons, and we're starting to recognize like where they're from. So we go in depth. We determine what holiday they're from, what the pattern is. We take photos of every balloon so we can start pinpointing where these very big sources are, so we can have a point of source campaign of some sort. So that's part of our current initiatives.
Cool.
So, thank you so much for your questions.
Thank you for coming, Katie.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any other questions concerning the
You know,
site?
one thing, if you could get the balloon manufacturers to go with a biodegradable balloon rather than a plastic, I mean, that would be a battle in itself, but that would take a lot of time and energy, and I don't know how cost-effective that would be, or what type of product and stuff that may be available out there for them to use an alternative material to make the balloons out of, because they all know they go up and land somewhere, like you said earlier.
Exactly.
I mean, they're going and landing somewhere, whether it be in the ground or in the ocean or wherever, but, you know, it almost you'd have to go and try to get, you know, something passed to force them to use a biodegradable material, because what they're doing is allowing every balloon that they sell to litter. And so littering is against the law.
Yeah, exactly.
And so every time they sell one, they know that they're breaking the law, because they're going to be released well, not all of them, but some of them will be. And so they're advocating littering our whole country and stuff, not just our waterways with that.
That's an excellent point. And there are biodegradable balloons that are available. We definitely need to improve upon those materials, because when these balloons still enter the ocean, they last for long enough time for marine life to ingest them still. So it's an excellent point, and something that we really need to be pushing more to have better alternatives, because they currently don't really exist. So, yeah, thank you.
Best of luck with it.
Just for
Thank you so
fun
much.
ideas, every time my kids go through Nordstrom's, they get a balloon. Maybe make a biodegradable turtle balloon.
Norse.
Start with Nordstrom's.
Yeah.
Publix used to do that a
I'll go
long
there
time
tomorrow.
ago.
Give them a
Down to
cookie.
cookie.
Give them a cookie.
Cookie's better, right? Well, thank you again for coming. If there is nothing else from council, we will close the hearing to council. May I have a motion to approve?
So
Motion.
moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 10, ordinance number 10-20, having to do with electric bicycles on sidewalks. First reading.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 10-20, ordinance of the Village Council of the Village of Tequesta, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances of Chapter 46, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Article 1 in general, to create an entirely new section 46-6 entitled Electric Bicycles on Sidewalks Prohibited, providing definitions, prohibitions, enforcement, and penalties for the operation of electric bicycles or e-bikes on sidewalks within the village, providing each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 46 shall remain full force and effect as previously adopted, providing a conflicts clause, severability clause, authority to codify effective date for other purposes.
Thank you. Jeremy, your name is on this. Do you want to speak to this a little?
Yeah, Ken, the permitted by newly state law, and we've had a conversation about this at a recent workshop, had discussion, we've had further discussion, and it kind of led us to draw this up, so we were prohibiting the e-bikes on sidewalks. My conversation with staff would be very hard to, enforce the level 1 versus level 2, level 3 of an e-bike, and so the ordinance proposed is to keep them off the sidewalks and keep the e-bikes in the streets. And so I guess that's the background on it.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing, now open for citizen comment. Seeing none, it is closed to the citizens and open for council comment.
I'll start in the aspect of, I strongly disagree. I think that we should hold the behavior accountable, not necessarily the item. I know that I have residents in the village that ride these bicycles, and one of them is a three-wheeler, and she's in her 70s, and she's not going very fast, but she would now be forced on the street versus going at her nice pace that she normally goes when she has opportunity on the sidewalks. So I'd hate to make this ruling and put someone in danger and put them in the street when they could safely also ride it on a sidewalk when available. So I'm opposed to it.
Thank you.
I'm gonna concur. I understand the issue about the levels and enforcement, but we talked too again about kids that could have a bike that could be electric. Trying to recall the different levels. I know I was not in favor of the ones that could move at the fastest pace without human assistance, but the idea that you're forcing, a 10-year-old kid out into the street who might have an electric bike, I just don't think from a safety standpoint that's ideal. So an absolute blanket prohibition, I know this is a difficult subject to work with and come up with a solution, but I have to concur with the Vice Mayor here that I would not support a blanket prohibition on this.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
I mean, you guys all know I was always kind of torn. Like Deamber said, there's some of the bikes that are a little bit different than others. We went over that, like the legalities of breaking them all into different categories. That's very tricky. At the end of the day, the ones I see are really fast, and I don't see any kids on it yet. If it becomes a trend with young kids on it, even if the state allows it, I would be more than happy to revisit it. At this time, I'd say that anything motorized needs to stay off of the sidewalks.
All right, thank you.
I agree with, what both you guys are saying, but, we really only have a couple of streets, in town, like in the neighborhood that I live in, there are no sidewalks. So all the kids ride everything that they've got in the streets. And so most of the areas that, in here really don't, you've got the main drag here at Tequesta Drive and several other roads and stuff that have sidewalks on them, and they're busier thoroughfares. And that's the reason why they have sidewalks, is to allow pedestrians to get out there and be able to walk safely, on a busier street. But in the neighborhoods and stuff that don't have sidewalks, you see kids out there all the time riding. And, the speed limits are lower in those areas and stuff as well, but in your higher speed limited areas and stuff, they all have sidewalks. And honestly, I wouldn't want my 10-year-old child, riding his bicycle down Tequesta Drive, even though the speed limit, is 30 or 35?
30, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can't please everybody. And it's a difficult decision. And, and I understand what you're saying, Kyle, in regards to, putting an older lady out there on her three-wheel bicycle and putting her out in the street and stuff. But unfortunately, you have to make a decision based on the larger good that we're trying to achieve with this. And that's my take on it. And I agree and concur and appreciate what both of you guys are saying. But I think, when you try to analyze it all for the betterment of the majority, I think that they should not be allowed, to ride on the sidewalks with a motorized vehicle. That's not what they're designed for. They're pedestrian traffic is what they're supposed to be used for. And so allowing them, because, we have not always had motorized bicycles when I was growing up, and motorized skateboards, and motorized this and motorized that, so things have changed. And so, it's kind of a catch-22 in some regards. And that's it.
I guess the only thing I'd offer, Bruce, is if you could have a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid riding their bike down the sidewalk on a 10-speed, and they could be going 10, 15 miles an hour easily. So, and again, as you said, if you're in country club, there are no sidewalks. Obviously, everybody, whether you're walking or a pedestrian, or whether you're riding a bicycle, you're out on the street. But the concern is the thoroughfares, because the kind of community we're trying to encourage, and again, we don't have bike paths at the current time along Tequesta Drive or Seabrook or some of these other thoroughfares, and we're trying to encourage people to walk and bike more. And I know when I was a kid, I used to ride my bike all around town.
Oh, yeah.
Go to the stores, go to the shopping centers. So, again, all we have to do is have, again, I understand somebody could get injured on the sidewalk, but God forbid there's a kid out there on the road and he gets hit by a car and dies. So I'm trying to weigh the relative risk reward here, and that's why I come down in agreement with Kyle on this.
And let me also put it somewhat into context of why this is here in front of us. There has been a big push for mobility within municipalities, within the state. As the state picked this up to try to encourage people to use these battery-powered bikes to create more mobility for individuals. And these bikes, I believe, are currently, we don't necessarily have an issue right now. We're just trying to get ahead of it. And I think a majority of these bikes, the price range above $2,000 or more, are being ridden by residents that are of retirement of age, majority of them. And I think by making restrictions and more rules against this, we're reducing the mobility and the intent of why the state picked it up. And so I would, again, try to encourage more use than less. And if we see individuals, and I guess majority of people feel like the concern is kids, using them recklessly, well, then that's why we have the rodeo days, bike rodeo days. That's why we would hold them accountable. And I think you enforce the behavior and allow good behavior to continue to happen, which is currently already happening.
I don't think anybody is definitely not saying that people in the road is not dangerous. I don't want my kids in the road for sure. For me, I just feel like we're adding a lot of things to the sidewalks if we don't have big sidewalks. We don't have Wellington sidewalks that are 8 to 10 feet, and there's a lot going on. I think we need to revisit it in a different angle. If it is getting trendy, Mr. Stone, I do agree, but I don't think it's there yet.
If you're allowed to ride a bike on a sidewalk, I don't see a difference between
But see, that's where I was torn last
battery-powered
time,
bike.
because the speed bikers aren't supposed to be on the sidewalk. They're supposed to be in the road.
They're allowed to ride on the bike, on the sidewalk.
So I get torn, why are we making the speed bikes on the road and the bike paths that were put in?
But the speed bikers are allowed to ride on the sidewalk.
What they don't, but I'm saying they're
They
okay.
don't.
But
Okay,
they're
I'm
allowed.
pointing out, and Mr. Prince is right, it's kind of a catch-22, right? It's just, we're not set up, for me, I don't think the village is set up for adding more to our pathways I think we need to address that in a different angle. Maybe we need to look at making them bigger, and
Well,
it's very hard to do even at that.
And your point's well taken, but conversely, we're not set up either for people to be riding these things on the roads.
And I
So-
agree with that too.
Give them the freedom to make the decision. for
So,
themselves.
again, I think, I agree with Kyle. At this point, we're trying to address a problem that isn't actually a problem at the moment. So we're trying to take some reasonable actions here, which I concur with. I mean, one of the things we did is when we did add the sidewalks along US 1, there was a master plan that was created that actually envisioned having bike paths in other areas of the village, particularly among the main thoroughfares. Now, that's never been followed through. It hasn't been looked at recently. I think that was, 3-4 years ago, Mayor?
Yes.
So there was a plan then to try and expand, and if we had the bike path properly situated, then that might change the equation.
And that's where I'm kind of torn too, is
But we don't have them right
the
now.
village put
So-
in bike paths, and yet your guys are pushing for
Well,
bikes to be on
there's
sidewalks.
bike paths only on US 1, not everywhere else. That's the only place they were put in. And again, when they build the new bridge, there's going to be bike paths along that bridge. So, again, the vice mayor is right. They're encouraging an expansion of mobility and an expansion of using different methods.
They are, and I agree with that, so
and-
bikes should be using the bike lanes.
But we don't have bike lanes on those roads. So again, the alternative is either you ride in the road, which I think there's a safety risk, which I think overweighs the risk of being on a sidewalk. But again, just a matter of perspective.
From my standpoint, it is concern for the abuse of people being on the sidewalks, not your retired people for the most part, because they're aware of other retired people walking.
That's who's riding the bikes, though.
Right, it's who's riding the bikes, and that's of concern to me. I really think that the village, moving forward, obviously needs to go back to bike lanes, getting that on Tequesta Drive. Now we know what that means, is you're taking rights-of-way that people think are theirs, you're removing trees, I mean, that was part of it, it's just a
Right.
very big expense. But I am concerned for the majority of the walkers that I see anyway, the majority, are not moving quickly to get out of the way of the bicycles enough. And the motorized ones really concern me. I just feel, I have concern about that. Is there any other comment on this item? All right, it is now closed to the council. May I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
A second?
I don't want to second it. Why are you
All right,
leaving it?
then the motion will fail, and we will have the bicycles on the sidewalks.
Mayor, if there's,
Oh, wait.
if it's your desire as.
I can pass this to-
Chair can second that motion.
Right.
I apologize, that's my fault, I apologize, I'll second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
All right, it carries 3-2. Thank you. All right, let's move on to item 11, and that is the reimbursement from Core and Maine for additional costs during AMI project. Didn't we talk about this already in workshop once, that we were going to be getting this reimbursement?
Not the specifics of this. I may have mentioned it probably in one of my weekly reports or something, but
Oh, okay.
I think Mr. Hammond can probably just enlighten us a little bit for this subject.
This is accepting money from them, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's all I need.
A good thing.
All right. It's not going the other way, but go ahead if you wish to cover this.
Thank goodness.
Sure, I will briefly for the benefit of the public. Without going into detail, this is related to the AMI meter replacement project. The village did incur some direct costs as related to the actions of the vendor Core in Maine. Those costs have been presented to them, and as a result, they accepted without, they acknowledged their fault and accepted without arguing. This is for transparency being presented before you to accept those
Thank you.
money coming our way.
Thank you. Are there any other questions concerning this?
No.
May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 13, this is to approve the lease purchase of Pure Storage X20 storage array and associated networking hardware. This must belong to Brad. Yes.
That's right. Good evening. Nice to see everybody. This is pretty typical replacement. Our SAN, which is a piece of equipment that we have over in public safety, is quite old, and it is due for replacement. It's at the end of its life cycle. So this proposal before you is for the replacement of that equipment and related. There's some peripheral equipment that also needs to be replaced, and this proposal is for the replacement of all of that.
Any
Price cut in
questions?
half. How?
So during the budget process, the initial configuration of the equipment was to provide 2 arrays instead of 1, so that we could mirror data between them, and provide an additional provide additional fault tolerance, and also provide another means of a more creative way of backing up our data to protect against things like ransomware. This system allows us to actually back up that data to third-party storage that we already have. And in addition to backing that data up to the cloud, to just standard Amazon S3 cloud storage. So because those features were implemented between the time, the budget process and now, we were able to eliminate the second array, which is why I basically cut it in half.
And I know that we just hired a firm to help with our security of the data, correct? I forget the name of the firm.
Right. We implemented the CrowdStrike platform.
CrowdStrike. Will this work with that?
This
Or
is
this
different.
hardware completely separate?
Yeah, so this is centralized storage. This is what all of our servers run on this platform.
Okay.
The CrowdStrike software is, it's more advanced. It's basically an antivirus, but fully managed antivirus.
Well, I went and tried to look at the reviews on this, knowing nothing about what it is. And it appears like all the reviews are really good.
Yeah.
On this piece of equipment.
This is a top-tier system. It's got a significantly beneficial feature set. It is very easy to use, which I will be very grateful for, because they're pretty complex systems. So it takes a great deal of expertise to really know how to run them correctly, and this simplifies a lot of the monotonous tasks associated with most SANs. So it really eliminates a lot of the time that I have to spend managing it, which is great, and provides additional benefit for the village in regards to security, data protection, and especially financially, it's great. We're not only saving money on CapEx, but our OpEx spending is going to be a lot lower too, because of their evergreen support model. SAN's really, it's not even the capital expense that gets expensive. It's the support and maintenance every year that continues to increase annually. At one point we were paying over $50,000 a year directly to NetApp before they end of life the product, and we had to obtain third-party support, and that just becomes unsustainable. So one of the goals when I was proposing the new system was to find a more affordable support model, and we were able to do that with Pure.
It's like around 15,000 a year?
Yeah, just below 15, like 14.7.
And is that a contract?
It's a 3-year.
3-year contract with the whole that price?
Yeah, so 14.7, I'm sorry, 15,569 annually, annually for 3 years.
And you think the lifespan on this equipment, I think you said is 6 years maybe?
Minimum 7 years. However, I wanted to make sure to put that in there because that is the typical lifespan of a SAN. Pure storage is getting considerably longer life. Out of that, one of the other goals was to find a system that we would not have to replace in another 7 or 8 years. I can't guarantee that we won't have to replace it, but I don't think we will. Because they don't end of life their product. My understanding is from speaking to some of my colleagues in IT who have Pure, I know of one that's 12 years old that's still supported by the manufacturer. That's considerable value when you consider the alternative, which is what we're doing now. Another $160,000 expense. So I think it's a really good move for the village.
Jeremy, the extra money on the saving on the budget, what happens to that?
Well, this will come at a capital, and we're going to, so what we're end up gonna do is we're gonna have a debt service for this item at like $60,000 a year. It'll get bumped down to, what we're gonna do is, instead of doing it at 6 years, we're gonna bump it down, I believe, to like a 5-year. So we're really not gonna save a lot on the front side. I think we're still save like $10,000 a year, but I think it's gonna be shortened down to like a 5-year period. So we're paying for this out of a loan that we'll be getting from Florida League of Cities, I believe.
Sorry, Jeremy, it's 3 years. It's going to be a 3-year lease.
We bumped it down to 3 years, sorry, I apologize.
problem.
But I know we were bumping it down the
The
number of
PB&T,
years
right?
as opposed to the 5 or 6
So
years.
you
but-
cut the price in half and you cut the duration in half.
Yeah,
Right.
since you gave me the floor, if you don't mind, I just want to, give Brad kudos, because ever since I got here and we started talking about a $300,000 or $400,000 project, I cringe every time I talk to him, but he's been working on it nonstop and trying to get it down, and, that's what you ask for, your directors, is to be critical of those costs and not just take that cost and run with it, and, but Brad does that with many of our contracts, so this is an example of that, and, we should applaud Brad for that, so thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other conversation?
I had two very quick questions.
Okay.
Yesterday, Firefly came out and talked about the fact that they had been penetrated, and, as you know, they develop programs to simulate attacks from sophisticated entities. I know you can't give us an absolute answer, but when you look at CrowdStrike and you look at some of the things that are going on in the cyber environment in terms of these attacks, what do you think our vulnerability is there? Do you feel CrowdStrike is the best solution we have right now?
I do,
Okay.
and that's why it was selected. Conversely, CrowdStrike was not selected because of cost.
Right.
CrowdStrike was selected because it's really one of the best platforms, if not the best. CrowdStrike and FireEye are direct competitors.
Okay.
In fact, FireEye was hired to do a remediation on our network as part of a potential breach.
Okay.
And that they're also a good company. But what that should show you is not that necessarily FireEye was inadequate in their preparedness, but
It was
rather
the sophistication of the attack.
the sophistication of the attack was such that they were able to penetrate their defenses, which I'm sure were substantial.
Yeah.
So, it is scary. I would hope that we are not as big a target as a FireEye or as a Baltimore or
Yeah, we
a
shouldn't.
Cleveland. We're a far lower, far smaller profile. Hopefully any attacker would realize that there's not as much
gained.
juice in the squeeze, So,
The second question I have is, I know we've had some issues with the phones, and I didn't know if that, I didn't know if that's software, if it's hardware, if it's us, if it's exactly what was, I just want to get a clarity as to exactly what was happening there
So-
and what we've done to address it.
so the phones, the phones, that was like a phone issue perfect storm. We had multiple issues with the phones, dissimilar issues. At first, our provider who we were with prior to about a week ago was Windstream Communications, who has been very poor in terms of their service, which has gone down a number of times in the past
Right.
3 or 4 months. It got to the point where it was down for several days.
Yep.
Immediately following that, it went down again, and it was a little different. It was a slightly different issue. And then we migrated over to a new provider who's been very good. It's been stable for the last week and a half. So can't say anything bad about them yet, but I trust that they'll be good. And our voicemail card failed on the phone system, which is a physical failure of a device. And that voicemail card hosts our auto attendant. So when you called into the village, you get the recording, it says, thank you for calling the village of Tequesta. That is actually hosted on the voicemail card. So it just died, and it took with it the auto attendant and everybody's voicemail. It turns out that we were unable to get a card with the same licensing because they don't make the cards anymore, they don't manufacture them, and the company's not around to issue new licensing, so we've had to make some adjustments in the way we use voicemail. But that's what the third failure, or the latest failure was, and we've recovered from that now. I think we're for the most part, operational. There's some tweaking that I have to do on the back end, but everything.
So do you see us needing to make any expenditures in this area to fully address these problems?
I think in the future, yes, I would say not this year, but it's something that we will want to consider at the end of our contract with New Horizons, who's our new provider. We have a 3-year contract with them that we just started. So I think when that contract comes up for renewal, we're going to want to look at possibly replacing the phone system or going with a VoIP solution or something of that nature.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Brad? If not, then may I, I'm sorry? No? May I have a
No.
motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 13, this is to approve the addition of Tequesta Park to the mowing and landscaping services contract. Mr. Chambers.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. The item in front of you is a recommendation to move the maintenance that staff currently does at Tequesta Park to the current contract we have with Terracon Services. We currently have a 5-year fixed-rate contract with Terracon Services with an option to renew for an additional 5 years, which would take us through 2028, also at a fixed rate. Adding Tequesta Park to the maintenance contract will free up staff to maintain other items throughout the village, like roads, sidewalks, buildings, building maintenance, road work. And at 4 cents a square foot, it would be in our best interest. We have reduced staff in the last 2 years. Currently, we are down 4 employees. We are looking not to fill 3 of those positions. So we're currently going to advertise and fill 1 more position, and in pushing the landscaping to the existing contract, that will help balance the workload for the public works staff.
All right, any questions?
Yeah, I appreciate you adding that last section, because of the, looking at the numbers, you're basically reducing your labor hours by about 2,000. And so that explains, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone?
I did the math and stuff on it. It looks like a really good bargain for what you're getting. I mean, it's less than $50 an hour. I think it came at like $48 and some change, if you took your, you had 2 to 3 guys on it, 10 hours, 2 or 3 times a month. And if you do the math and stuff on it, it's really a very economical way to cut some money and stuff and free up those guys. I mean, it's to put all the crew out there with a truck and a trailer and lawnmowers and weed eaters and blowers and stuff, and for less than $50 an hour is a pretty darn good deal, I think.
Right, that doesn't factor in the maintenance and the fuel. And even if we put 1 employee there full-time,
Yeah.
it's still cost-effective to push it to the contractor.
It didn't say in there, do they do any fertilization or weed control and stuff in that
They
as
do.
well?
They do it, and they've adopted the same basic principles that Jupiter's adopted for fertilization and throughout the village.
Mm-hmm. That's a bargain,
Yeah.
I think.
And we have a 10-year contract at a fixed rate.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, the annual cost for Terracon is $71,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, they maintain 33 different locations throughout the village, right-of-ways and different areas. To get a fixed rate, the next bidder, for instance, was more than double Terracon's annual price. So we have a really good contract and partner with
Yeah,
Terracon.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything further? May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, let's move to item 14, which is the lease purchase of 4 police vehicles. And I know that Chief Medina was called away on business, so Jeremy, you're going to take this for us?
Mr. Donkerling will.
Oh, okay, fine. Great.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. The item before you basically represents a continuation of our partnership with Enterprise Fleet Management. And this year, what we'll be doing is leasing 4 police vehicles at a cost of approximately $156,851 over a period of 5 years. And the interest rate is going to be determined at the delivery of the vehicles. And the index is 300 basis point, or 3% over the Fed funds rate, which is, the Fed funds rate is abysmally low at this point. So for all intents and purposes, it's about 3%.
Okay.
And I'm pretty much open for any questions that you might have.
Council, any questions? This is a continuation of a plan that they have put in place.
So this is in addition to I think the 2 that had already been delivered?
Exactly.
There's 3 that have been
Precisely.
delivered?
It's under the master equity lease agreement that was executed last December.
Okay. There are no other comments. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. New item number 15 is the extended FMLA and emergency sick leave topic. And Mr. Allen, are you taking this one?
Yeah, I can. So the federal government, when COVID rolled out, put together some, we'll say, unfunded mandates with COVID. They expire, their sunset as of December 31st. We have been working on this for the last, I don't know, couple weeks. Marlene and I, we got to the point where we felt we tossed some different scenarios around to still take care of our employees, because COVID is still around, hasn't went away, even though this is set to sunset. This is going to sunset. And then as we kind of finalized how we're going to extend this, at least the initial part of it, we realized it was council night and we didn't have any more time, so that's why it was late. And so I'll take responsibility for that. But we are recommending that we do allow the emergency or the Family Medical Leave Act with the benefits of that to expire. But we are recommending that we extend the Family Medical Leave Act with the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act policy to extend for an indefinite period of time until we feel the vaccine is readily available, the employees have had an opportunity, and so we'll constantly monitor that. But this is a policy that council adopted, and it was in place as of April 1st. And so that's why we need to bring it back to council to get that blessing to continue with that portion of that. And I can answer any questions you may have.
I'm just not able to really see this well right now. Jeremy, did you say that you would discontinue the FMLA?
No,
and-
as it extends to COVID, I mean, obviously the FMLA is,
Right.
it's a federal mandate, but there were some things that extended to COVID. So as they expire, the COVID part of that, we'd let those expire because they're supposed to sunset as of December 31st.
Okay.
The emergency paid sick leave part of this, we want to extend and keep that in place, because that's the part that, if an employee gets sick, COVID-related, we send them home because they meet certain criteria, and you have those criteria on here, we will still take care of those employees during this time.
Okay.
So that's the portion of it that has some of the meat for us, and some of the employees we've been able to help our employees that have gotten COVID or been quarantined during this period.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now we are moving on to any other matters. Does anyone have anything?
I just like to throw something out there, since we are all trying to support our businesses, maybe in the year of 2021, one day each quarter, we invite all businesses and services to the park as a one-stop shop in the park kind of day. But I would be in favor of not limiting it to types of businesses. It could be a service, like plumber advertising his services, electrical, hairstylist, people that sell retail, people that sell restaurant food. I just think it'd be easier for residents to go to one place outside in the fresh air with controlled gate management with entry. 4 times a year, I think businesses might be open to that. raw idea, just throwing it out there. Let someone in the village chief take it over.
Well, we can look at that, and I'll simmer. I just know that we've had many conversations just since before last week about really trying to, we'll say, minimize any gatherings right now. I mean, I know we just had the Christmas one, and we've had many conversations just about the Christmas events, but I think there's some validity to doing something like that event, but I would say if you give us some time and let us work through some of the COVID issues, then we can come back and
Totally
and
understandable.
revisit
I'm
that.
not saying first quarter even, just
Yeah.
throwing it out there. Maybe
Thank
the
you.
village can actually get back to doing some of those kind of things, because I know other municipalities used to, and they've kind of died off, but
Right.
maybe the village can bring them back a little bit.
I think you bring out a good point with a couple things, with the bridge closing in a couple of years, to get ahead and get some things in place, some events in place are very, very important. I think that we have, recently this has mostly been geared towards retail and restaurants. And the industries of the service industries where, like you mentioned, plumbing and whatever they might be, how do we help them as well get exposure to the residents? And if there are ways, but I think that'd be a great idea to brainstorm and come up with a couple different events. We did have a meeting this past Monday with the business associations and the Hope Sound Chamber, and we've asked them the chamber to come with some ideas for some events that they would want to get behind and support. So we'll see what's going to happen at the next meeting on January.
Excellent. Anyone else have any other matters?
I'd spoken with Jeremy earlier, and unfortunately, I didn't get that email to you as quickly as I had hoped, but I thought that since this is the last meeting of the year, it might not be a bad idea just to get an update on a few things. So I had sent him a list. I'm not sure if he got it before the meeting started, but I know we talked about the Cypress land sale. I'll kind of go through the list, and you can tell me where we stand on any of this, but Cypress land sale was the first one. You know, we had talked about, there were two parties that were potentially interested, and we were going to go back to them and kind of see where they stood, and I don't know if we've even had time to really address it.
Yeah,
If we
if
haven't,
you want
that's
to go
fine,
one
but-
by one with these, and I can
Yeah, let's
throw out real quick. So the
let's just go
Cypress
one by
land
one.
deal, there's 6 properties over there. I've made contact with 5 of them. 4 of them are interested if we were to section each section off. So, you know, obviously council still wants to consider that long-term, and, you know, so it's not a done deal, and I've made my point to them that, you know, this is still under consideration, but are you at least interested in it? And 4 of them have said they are. I have talked to a realtor about, you know, the price for that land, because it's only really valued for those property owners. So we are working through that, and hopefully what I've learned just recently is that there's some drainage on that property that the county may have put in years ago. And so I'm still vetting that process. So it's in works. We have, you know, and just as early as today, I talked to one of the property owners about selling, so.
Okay. We talked about the grant situation too, and one of the things I suggested to Jeremy was we put together a spreadsheet that details all the grants that we've applied for and their current status, so that we're kept up to date. And along with the grants, and this is stuff we can look at for next year, but, you know, we had talked about grants for Tequesta Park. We've talked about the whole Tequesta Park situation because, again, we lease the land, we're maintaining it, but capital improvements to that property, since it's not exclusively for the use of Tequesta residents, you know, we've talked about different approaches we might be able to utilize to try and bring some additional dollars. The Paradise Park situation, I know we've talked about this in the past, but, you know, I think that could become our mini Central Park for the village. And I know Ryan, in talking with Greg and Ryan, there is a grant, and I think I mentioned, I think I brought this up earlier in the year, that is available that will value the property at its highest use, which is one of the issues for Paradise, is that Zuccarelli has valued it as a commercial property, and we're valuing it as a park property, and never the two shall meet. But this grant will pay up to 75% of the acquisition cost. So, you know, there are a number of opportunities like that, you know, grants for the medians of US 1, grants along the natural property area along US 1 that I'd like to see us really get on early in the year and take some initiative and really see if we can move some of these things forward, or at least get a better understanding of what the opportunities are. We've got 2 grant writers now, and obviously we need to allocate, you know, the projects between the 2, but I think there's some real opportunities there for us. Phone systems we already addressed. And the last one was the well field. I know, Matt, you had mentioned you're going to be coming back to us fairly soon with it, you know, with a proposal for either the rehabilitation or the drilling of new wells. And I just wanted to get a timetable, get your sense of when that's going to come back to us.
Yep. So the preliminary design for the rehabilitation of the upper Floridan wells, which counterintuitively are the deeper wells, that preliminary design has been complete. And so I'm working with our consultant to have a work authorization ready for the January council agenda.
Okay.
The second piece of that is the surficial well replacement, specifically well number 19. And I'm working with them also to have a work authorization ready to bring at the January council meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Since Matt has the floor, he is, as of today, he has his master's degree, or Saturday he's graduating, but he's finished his master's program, so.
Outstanding.
I would sing you a song, but I don't know one that would work.
Give it, Kate.
Don't let him
Thank you
sing.
for now.
Don't let him sing.
And then the last item I had, Jeremy, was with the county commission now having been selected, have we restarted the annexation conversations yet? Or again, that may be something for the new year, but just wanted to get a feel for where we stood with that.
Well, very good question. The mayor and I will be meeting with Senator Powell and Mr. Snyder in the coming days. I think Mr. Powell is tomorrow, and Mr. Snyder, I think, is the following week. And part of that conversation is going to be about annexation. As you know, the Florida League of Cities is really pushing legislation this year, or trying to push legislation this year, to remove enclaves from the state level, which would make, you know, our priority of annexation, make it much easier, or mesh that, you know, that. So, you know, my thought, and I, you know, had this conversation a little bit, is let's see how that plays out. I think that would be the path, instead of us trying to, you know, rally those citizens in those enclaves. But the way that it's worded in Florida League of Cities, assuming they keep their draft proposal, is almost perfect wording for us, and it's almost like it was written for Tequesta, the way that it was, let's get rid of enclaves.
So are Snyder and Powell, are they supportive of this change?
I'm sure, I know before Rep. Powell or Rep. Snyder was put in, we had this conversation he absolutely agreed.
Okay.
He understands Tequesta. As far as Bobby Powell is concerned, I had the conversation with him years ago. I don't see this as a problem, quite frankly, with him.
Okay.
I don't see it at all as a problem. I know Riviera Beach and his district has had issues with that as well, and I think he'll be looking forward to.
So you'll think he'll be open to it?
Yeah, I think he's going to be open to it, and and part of this is working with Jack Corey as well, our lobbyist. Since I've known these people for 8 years, 10 years, just before I go, we're going to make contact with everybody.
Okay.
So that I'm essentially, you know, we're bringing up things that we want to talk about. I'm passing the torch, basically not surprising them in an email sometime. I want to make sure that Maria is already aware. So there are other people. And then obviously that would put us in a position. Jeremy has now, you know, full contact with them as well. And then our new council then will have that same ability to keep going forward, make sure that we keep it
moving.
Yeah, we don't want it to
And
go
I will
away.
mention, when we have that meeting with Snyder, I will mention the Tequesta Park thing, because I know you wanted to sit down and talk about that. But since we'll have the floor with him, I will bring that up, and then maybe there's another conversation. You come back with him later.
Well, and again, you know, we know that there have been municipalities have been able to procure earmarks. So, you know, the earmark opportunity is there, perhaps, so.
Absolutely. Okay. Anything from anyone else?
Since we're on the update mode, CARES Act, county, and the county making comments that plan on giving potential money back to the local municipalities. I know that you've been keeping track of some of that. where are we at with that?
Well, thanks to Chief Troop and his staff. So the county, let me go back, the county, about a month and a half ago, has opened their CARES Act funding to municipalities for certain criteria, certain things, computer, IT related, some PPE. Chief Troop and his staff has went through some of the stuff that we were submitting to FEMA, pulled some of that out, and we're gonna go ahead and attack the CARES fund through the county. And so they have submitted a request for $137,000 that are the qualifying expenses through the county. The county has said that they are trying to get through those fairly quickly. And so we expect an answer in the next maybe month or so. Sooner, I'm not only getting too excited, so.
Please let us know, Chief, when that.
They have the right to check.
Yeah, okay. That's right. It was by the end of December, they were trying to get it out, so that, because they have an obligation to do that. So, out of the 100, I think we're probably, well, I mean, we were right around $200-something thousand altogether for COVID-related expenses, not the revenue we've lost out, because it's obviously more, but, so we're looking at probably 60-75% of those funds that we've expended that we might be able to recoup through the county. So.
Good, that's great.
And Tessa is a big part of that. I know I say Chief Troop and his team, but Tessa has been the one that's led the pack with that. So, appreciate her.
We do have some very special staff members, there's no question, as you've mentioned it a couple of times today, the people that are really standing out in front and doing this for the village. It's amazing. Anyone else? I just have one thing. I know, and Keith, maybe you know the number, but this has to do with Zoom, the governor, no Zoom, the governor. And I know that a lot of municipalities in Palm Beach County have moved towards writing their own ordinances, in this case, or resolution, I should say. Do you know, I thought it was 15 or 16 at this point. Do you know what that number is? And I'm not talking about us so much, but I just wanted to get this out.
I don't know the number, I know
It's
somewhere in that neighborhood.
and it's growing. But what I want to talk about is the Environmental Advisory Committee. They feel strongly, and they have made the statement, they will not meet again until they can meet via Zoom. Now, they're not a legislative body. They're not passing ordinances. The things we've been a little worried about is that what would happen if we passed an ordinance and we're using Zoom, but we're not, So in this case, I was wondering, Keith, if council agreed, that we could do a resolution that would apply to them so that they could use Zoom as a vehicle for their meetings, because they are so concerned about their health.
I don't think the legal position is different, but I think, as you indicated, the potential implications are much less severe with that group. I mean, really, it's an advisory committee. Technically, they take action on things, but it's action to bring things here
Right.
for actual action. So I think the consequences are much less potentially harmful if you were to do that for that type of group.
They're very strong about this, and I did have a conversation with Mr. Shaw, and, it really bothers them that they can't meet. And if council were willing to do that for them, again, they're only advising us. That doesn't mean anything gets passed, doesn't mean that we ever have to go back.
Yeah, I've actually, on the behalf of EAC, I've told Mr. Allen that is a challenge. I was asking him, because he's staff, to maybe think creatively how we can let them meet, but be respectful of their mindset for their health, because half of them are in the age bracket technically, and then the other half do have some children.
Yeah, and I understand it should
So I would
probably
be in favor of
resolution.
being open to finding creative ways to let them meet, at least until, like Chief Troop said, things find their way, right, through the next year. I'm sure things will change and alter like they have been every month.
I think there's a couple things here. I know the last meeting, we had the ability to do a Zoom meeting and still have a council. I would love if we were able to, in January, to have a Zoom meeting to allow residents to come talk through the Zoom platform. To me, I think that's a good way of still creating that interaction and allowing people to speak for their 3 minutes. So I'd like to see that. And I also don't have an issue with think there's such low risk with regards to the environmental committee.
I would, then, if council agrees, I'd ask Keith to bring back a,
You could bring back a resolution, and to the vice mayor's comment, even under this scenario, in my opinion, there's nothing that would prevent you from allowing the public to participate remotely.
Okay.
While you're sitting in chambers.
right.
I think that that's absolutely within the scope of the law.
All right, Jeremy, can you talk to with Brad about this? to
Yeah, let
see
me
if
work
it's
on the
even-
logistics of that, just because, as you guys know,
Yeah,
and
it's very
from all the school stuff, you know, people chiming in and, you know, speaking out of turn and all those things, somebody's gonna have to control that, you know, somebody's gonna have to work that process. So let me work on the logistics of that and see if we can do it smoothly with the staff that we have.
Yeah, I mean, it does have the ability for everyone to be muted and someone to raise their hand to then be
Right,
unmuted.
but then somebody's gotta.
But then
click
someone
on it.
has to
So-
be doing
So
it.
we'll work on it, just like,
It's
give me a
another
chance, so I don't wanna say yes yet, but there's high
okay.
probability we can make it work. We have the equipment now that we didn't
Right.
have 2 months ago.
Yep.
When I was out.
Yeah,
And it worked for the,
Yeah.
when
yeah, we
Pop Shop was on.
we did it. It got there. Just as the last thing, I just wanted to say Merry Christmas to everybody here at our table. And thank you for a year of great work. I
Unique
very much grateful for you, each and every one of you, and all that we do. We work hard. I know that. All right, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.